Coming to you live from the JRE Tobacco Aladino Mobile Studios, it's the Cigar Pulpit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop of the Bird, Nick, and we have a very interesting and good discussion for you today. So I recently sat down with listener Chris, and Chris is a postal worker for the United States Postal Service. And so as you've heard on the show, I've kind of had my issues with the post office as of late. They've gone back a number of years, but, you know, they've kind of ramped up with a few things. And so Chris reached out and he was like, hey, I work for the post office. You want me to come on and talk? And I'm like, yes, I do. And so I sat down with Chris and we had a good discussion. I mean, like, if you guys want to know about the post office and some of the problems plaguing it and everything else, we get into the weeds in this episode. So sit back and enjoy that. But first, because I didn't get to it when we did the whole cut and light thing during the interview, it's time for the greatest commercial you've ever heard.
Some say cigars are all the same. It's just not true. It's you I have to blame.
Well, I don't know, 'cause what I know, there is a cigar called Aladino Corojo.
Aladino Corojo. Aladino Corojo. They say authentic, so we're not confused, while the others say it's a word that's just abused.
I guess that's so, they can't compete. At least I'm sure Aladino can't be beat.
Corojo. Aladino Corojo. Aladino Corojo. Aladino Cigars uses authentic Corojo tobacco from JRE Tobacco. This is the greatest commercial you ever heard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we have the obligation to Aladino out of the way there, why don't we go ahead and jump right into my interview with Chris from the post office. And we are joined today by listener Chris. How are you, Chris?
I'm good, Nick. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Now, we're keeping you, kind of anonymous. Anonymous. I'm like tripping over my tongue here. We're keeping you a little anonymous because you work for the United States Postal Service.
I do.
And I know in years past, when I have expressed my dissatisfaction with the post office, I've received love notes from you, kind of being like, hey, calling me out. And so we've gone back and forth, and so I figured, let's get you on the show and let's have a discussion about the post office. And I think after talking with you back and forth, I think you and I are on the same page on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. It's just that perhaps I need to be a little bit better about pointing out that I'm having trouble with the bureaucracy of the post office and not necessarily the employees of said post office. But nonetheless, I have my issues.
Oh, yeah, everybody has their issues. I mean, the Postal Service is no different than the fire department or police department. We have our bad apples that you see throwing away mail. So there's always going to be people like that.
Oh, I have some notes. I have some things to discuss, and trust me, that's going to come up. So, but first, it's a cigar podcast, and by God, I want to smoke a cigar. So, what are you smoking? Because ironically, we would be smoking the same thing, except for the fact that mine didn't show up yet.
Is it the post office's fault?
It is the post office's fault.
Okay.
They're rattling around somewhere in Iowa at this point.
Well, I am smoking the Warfighter Tobacco Dumpster Fire, and I thought, what better way to talk about the post office than, having a cigar that embodied it.
Embodies the post office. It's a dumpster fire.
It can be, yes.
But see, now I went the opposite way. I went more, like, come on, we can do better. And I went with the United Maduro Churchill And mine's a 7x54 featuring a Mexican San Andreas wrapper, Dominican binder, and fillers of Brazilian Mata Fina, Dominican broadleaf, and Dominican Seco.
Nice.
I know, right? So I went
I,
more with the United, and that sort of thing.
and the only thing I got to say about the dumpster fire, it's a it's a 6x50 and it's a mixed fill cigar. They really don't give a breakdown on what the wrapper and binder is.
But I've had that thing before. I've had a dumpster fire before, and I'll tell you, despite the fact that it's a mix fill, it doesn't smoke like a mix fill. It smokes
No,
really, really well.
they have their own podcast too, the Warfighter Tobacco podcast, and
Oh, okay.
they talked about it once, and I want to say they said it either uses a double binder or a triple binder to really keep everything together.
That would make sense. That would make sense. So, well, it's time to cut the cigar, and the official cutting is brought to you by 2guyscigars.com. That's the number 2guyscigars.com. Two Guys have been around for 40 years, and they are the trusted name in the cigar industry. Everybody knows Two Guys, but if you don't, please give them a try. You won't be sorry. Family owned and operated, 2guyscigars.com does the very best to provide a great selection, fair prices, and excellent customer service. So please go to 2guyscigars.com for your next cigar purchase. Tell them that the Cigar Pulpit sent you. And remember, that's the number 2guyscigars.com. And with that, it's time to go ahead and cut the cigar. So,
I love Two Guys, by the way.
dude, they're great. And but for the love of God, can you explain to me why something that leaves New Hampshire? I understand that it has to go from New Hampshire to Boston. That makes sense to me because my mail here where I live, just on the other side of the river from St. Louis, goes from Illinois to St. Louis and then from St. Louis out. So why in the world does something coming from Boston then go to St. Louis, then to Iowa, then to Kansas City, then back to St. Louis?
There's a couple different ways that could happen, and I've seen it. I've had that happen to me. Um, it could be as simple as somebody threw it in the wrong bin.
Okay.
Or it could be something as complicated, and I've seen this happen, is somehow the computer system that the post office uses assigns the wrong zip code to the package. And what happened is what we call loop mail, is how it keeps going to a certain post office and it doesn't go to the correct one. We even see that with paper mail.
So wait, so it makes it, but then the computer system, then tells it it's not in the right spot. It needs to go to Iowa now.
Yep, sometimes. Somehow it fucks it. And I'm sorry, again, I grew up, my dad was in the Navy,
Dude,
my mom was in the Navy, and I work for the Postal Service. I cuss a lot.
you're fucking fine. You're fine.
But yeah, the system's fucked up, and that's on my notes to talk about because some shit happened a couple years ago that really screwed over a bunch of us rural carriers.
Okay. Okay. So now, all right, without getting into too many specifics before we get too far here, what is, how do I ask this? What can you tell us about your position in the post office? Like I said, without getting too specific so that, we can drill down. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to get you in trouble. So, I
mean, there's some protections as long as I don't talk about any proprietary information.
Okay.
And let's face it, no joy stepped down. So,
oh, I'm gonna get to DeJoy. But yeah,
so
I like the No Joy name, by the way. That's nice.
That's what the postal employees call them.
I
am a rural regular carrier.
Okay.
I have a regular route that I work every day, including today when I have my non-scheduled day, and that's it. That's all I do. I'm the friendly face you see in the mail truck every day.
So you're driving the little buggy, and when you say it's a rural route, so that's more country, or
it should be out where you live. That's probably what you see. It's somebody like me that just wears this to work. There's no uniform. There's no uniform.
Okay.
The people that you see walking or has a postal uniform, those are city carriers.
City routes. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and that's the thing. So I am familiar with the route to some degree with the routes and everything. With my newspaper, I know I have city routes, and then from there were routes. I've done the every door delivery, and I
Hmm.
know with that you have to break down, like what you're mailing. You have to put them in the bundles for you guys, and so that's broken down by the routes and that sort of thing. So I'm a little familiar with that stuff. And but I didn't know that the rural people didn't have to wear a uniform. That makes sense to me now.
I'm glad.
No, I mean I get it. Well, yeah, who would want to wear that? That looks
Well,
super uncomfortable.
from what I'm told, they're actually pretty comfortable. And
Okay.
I wish I could have gotten hold of Mr. Corey Walton. He has a podcast from A to Arbitration, and he's a city carrier, been a city carrier for 32 years.
Yeah.
And their union's going through a whole bunch of upheaval right now. By the way, if you didn't know, there's 7 postal unions.
I did not know there were 7 different postal
Yeah.
unions.
And they have a uniform allowance. Their uniform allowance, I think right now is $432
Okay.
to buy a complete set of postal uniforms. I think it's 3 shirts, 2 shorts, a pair of pants, and boots is about $900.
Oh my gosh.
A pair of boots alone, I think, is close to $300.
So these employees are now having to pony up at least half of the cost of their uniform out of pocket because the
Hmm.
rest is covered by the allowance. But oh my gosh.
And they only get that allowance once a year, and you have to use it before the end of the year. A
And
rain,
and
a
and
rain
three
jacket. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, and I was gonna say 3 shirts, 2 shorts, and a pair of pants. That's not covering you for the whole year.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're doing
A rain jacket alone is 900
oh my gosh.
because there's only one. From what I understand, there's only one postal uniform supplier, so they can jack up the prices as high as they want.
Of course. Okay. Well, um, where do I even begin? So, I mean, there's so many places here. So, where do you want to begin with this conversation? Let's put it that way, because I have my notes of different complaints that you see lobbied against the post office fairly regularly. I have some various things about DeJoy that I want to get to, but look, where do you
Well,
want to start?
let's start with your complaints,
Okay.
and then I can launch into some of my complaints as a an employee,
Okay.
and then we can kind of go back and forth. But before I do that, before
Yes.
we, I'm just gonna make a little disclaimer, and it's this: the views and opinions expressed by myself during this podcast are mine alone, and in no way represents the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the unions associated with the UPS or USPS. I am off the clock, out of uniform, and off postal property during this interview.
There you go. All right. So now that that's noted, let's start with one before we get into my complaints. I do want to start with one uh preconception that I think a lot of people have. I think a lot of people believe that the United States Postal Service is just another branch of the federal government, or it's another department of the federal government. You guys have it's like a weird incestuous relationship with the government, right? It's not quite
It's yes,
it's
yes and no. The post office, the postal service, is one of the few named things in the Constitution that the founders said that we had to have. And up until the strike of the 1970s, the Postmaster General was a cabinet level position, meaning
okay.
you had to get confirmed by the Senate and everything like that. After the strike and after the Reorganization Act, we became a semi-private business, meaning we're still under the control of Congress. We have a board of postal governors,
Mhm.
but we do not, and a lot of people think this, you do not pay our salaries. We receive no taxpayer assistance. We're
Hence the
like
reason our stamps are going up every other, like, or twice a year, it seems like.
And the joy, I get where the joy is coming from with that because we are being priced out of the market.
Yeah.
80% of our mail volume has gone down over the last 20 years with the advent of, emails and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. It's actually something I did want to point out. So first class mail volume by my research dropped 3.6% year over year to 44.3 billion pieces, and or it dropped that much. First class mail use is down 80% since 1997 at its lowest level since 1968. So people just aren't using the first class mail these days. I mean, which makes sense. I mean, we have email, we have
Hmm.
texting, there's all sorts of different digital, communication methods that people are utilizing versus actually dropping something in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hurts. Like today on my route, I had total 970 some pieces of mail, and
And how
that's not all first class. That's what people will call junk mail.
I was,
We call paycheck mail because we're paid to deliver it.
yeah, no, that makes sense. So, now we'll get more into DeJoy, but he was appointed. It was what, 2020? It was
Yes.
in 2020, I believe he was appointed, and he this past November, so November 2024, he warned that the post office, which has lost more than $100 billion since 2007, must continue to cut costs or will remain on the path to either, quote, a government bailout or the end of the great organization as we know it, end quote. The USPS is implementing a 10-year restructuring plan that he came along with in 2021, that he says aims to eliminate $160 billion in predicted losses over the next decade. USPS now predicts 80 billion losses in over that same period, and plans to further cut to address the shortfall. So DeJoy comes in and basically it's like raise prices, cut to the bone, and cut services is kind of the way I see it.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah,
He's making what's called SNDC centers, which is like I forget the postal name for it. It's like sorting and delivery centers
uh-huh.
where he's collapsing a whole bunch of offices. I think it's a 25 or 50 mile radius, all into one office in hoping to cut down on the number of trucks.
Okay.
But like my office, where they were looking at putting one, is about 30 miles from Maryfield, Virginia.
Okay.
So we have 60 routes in my office, all rural, 61 routes. So now my route's 22 miles. So now if we were to move up there, you're now asking us to drive 30 miles just to get back into the area, do my 22-mile route, drive 30 miles back
Back.
on trucks that only get about 6 miles to the gallon and catch fire.
Uh-huh. Well, but see, they're bringing in this new electric fleet.
That's only going to be part of the fleet,
Uh,
they're only putting them, from what I understand, in the S&DC centers that they're building because they can automatically, just build in the infrastructure for these vehicles.
mhm. Now, um, but meanwhile, you know, under this, um, the USPS last in July, this past July, raised the price of a first class mail stamp to 73 cents from 68 cents and increased overall mailing services product prices by 7.8%. So, like I said, prices are going up. I know through ticky tacky little increases, my periodical permit on my newspaper has gone up like 40%. I mean, it's ridiculous now what I'm paying to mail my newspapers, whereas versus what I was, pre-COVID. I mean, it's crazy. Um, and at the same time that that's going on, correct me if I'm wrong, but now first class delivery is no longer guaranteed in 2 days. Now it's 5 days, right?
Yes, I think that's what he's trying to go to, but there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of pushback from Congress about that.
At the same time, it's not so much that he's maybe wanting to codify it, but like it basically is there, you know. I mean, I don't get mail quick. Mail has been significantly slower, you know, especially it feels like in the last year, you know,
I,
it's gotten a lot slower.
and I believe the reason why for you is I
Yeah,
believe there's an SNDC that went in by your area.
it's possible. I
Because
mean,
when they make these SNDCs, they shut down the old processing plants and they funnel everything through that. Because I know I have a city carrier friend in Arkansas, that had an SNDC put in, so they shut down his processing plant in Arkansas, shipped everything 4 or 5 hours west, just so they have to drive 4 to 5 hours back east to drop off the mail.
well, now you know what's interesting about what you're saying is, as I think about it, so there's the St. Louis, what we call here the St. Louis distribution plant. I don't know if it's a distribution; it's the central hub that
Yeah, it's
everything goes to St.
usually a
Louis.
distribution. Yeah.
But there's also the Hazelwood facility, which Hazelwood is a suburb of St. Louis. It's just north of St. Louis, just a hair, and it's kind of by the airport, the Lambert Airport in St. Louis here. And so what'll happen? But everybody calls that the package sorting facility.
Mm-hmm.
So is
Makes
that one of
sense.
these SD whatever? Like,
No, it would be S&DC. No, they're right because I don't know if we use it as much now, but we used to ship a lot of our packages not via road transport, but we would contract with UPS, and they would
through
fly it on their planes, and then that's why you see a lot of the package handling facilities next to airports.
near airports. Okay, all right. So now I do know there was some sort of consolidation that was done in Illinois, um, for post offices because so I have to run my certificate of or my statement of ownership in my newspaper annually every year in the fall, and the lady that was in charge of that was telling me that she was now in charge of my area, and she was from way up north, and there was some consolidation that was done. So that might be more.
I was going to say that sounds like an S&DC plan.
Yeah. So okay. Um. Anyway, so yeah, so we've got that going on. Services, prices are going up, services are going down, delivery time is going down, or increasing. Now, the thing, and this is something I wanted to discuss too, you know, in terms of a complaint, and so I hear things anecdotally, and I don't want to like get into the anecdotal, like, oh, I heard this and I heard that. A friend of a friend told me that, you know, that kind of thing. But one thing I did look up, and I was able to find, is a 2024 report from the USPS's Office of Inspector General that found an increase in internal mail theft. And over the last 4 fiscal years, United States Postal Inspection Service closed 5,961 cases of internal mail theft. And they say that the problem is getting worse because closed cases increased from 47 or by 47% from FY19 to FY23. In FY 2020, they registered or logged 1,216 closed cases, but in FY23, it went up by over 500 to 1,790. And so there's a guy that's quoted in this article about this. It's Frank Albergo. He's the president of the Postal Police Officers Association. And he's quoted as saying that you have criminal organizations, gangs, that are actually recruiting people to get a job in the Postal Service so they can rob mail and drain bank accounts. And he says that's what's happening. Now, the thing is, and this is where I learned about this, is that you have like two tiers of postal employees. You have the pre-carrier employee, and then you have the carriers. Like and I guess the pre-carrier employees, the turnover is ridiculously high, the pay is less, the benefits are less, and they're saying that that's the position, that's the area, that's the level where a lot of this internal theft is taking place, and a lot of people are like getting their checks and mail and identities stolen and all kinds of other stuff.
That I'm not sure of, just because, I'm not privy to that type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see it in my office.
Okay.
But the turnover rate is ridiculous and everybody has a different every craft has a different name for it. Like I started out as a sub, or otherwise known as an RCA, or rural carrier assistant.
Okay.
City carriers have the same thing, city carrier assistant, CCAs, and they are paid. The RCAs, I think, in this latest contract, uh, and we're currently operating under no contract because ours expired last year, is $20.38.
Okay.
Which, in your area might be a little bit better than where I live, where, to live comfortably,
Cost of living is
yeah,
higher.
you
Yeah.
need $190,000 for a family of three to live comfortably.
Okay.
And yeah,
Um,
turnover is insane.
well, and that's the thing, and that's what I always hear is that you have these folks that the internal theft at the post office is one of the biggest issues, and that it's causing all kinds of check washing. That's a new thing that seems to have popped up a lot more in the last couple of years, where a check will get stolen, and they essentially like take the check, and they take all the data and all the information, checking account number, routing number, all the information from it, and they'll write checks off of that checking account, and fraudulent checks, and that seems to be on the increase. The local federal prosecutor, before they were let go today, they were touting that they stopped some people that were doing that, and they were part of a postal system, and everything. And it's so I guess where do we want to go? Like, where do you want to take this? Because I've kind of touched on some of my stuff, but
Uh,
so basically my issues are, it's slow, it costs a lot, it's bouncing all over the country, and you have allegations of employee theft. So where
I
do you
mean,
where do you want to go?
people are gonna do what people do as far as
Mm-hmm.
the employee theft, and yeah, it gives a bad name to all the rest of us that take pride in the job. It's like when you get the bad journalists that only print a story to increase their clout or whatever. They don't
Yeah.
care where it comes from. Um,
My only thing, the only thing that I want to, and I'm not, again, I don't want to make this anywhere near contentious between you and I, because I know that we're on the same page with
yeah,
this. But I'm just interjecting because I have this thought, and I have my note in front of me, and I should have mentioned it before. So with that report, the Inspector General report that came out in 2024, there were a number of different suggestions that they came up with as ways to fix this problem. And apparently, USPS management only agreed with one recommendation, and that was to identify all the broken surveillance cameras and come up with a plan to fix them by October of 2025. But that they don't have the staff to continually monitor or track surveillance cameras. So they'll have cameras, but it's not like they're going to
yeah,
be
it
able to
doesn't.
do
Yeah,
anything
it
with
doesn't. That's classic post office.
it.
I have a joke, and again, this is just my joke, is the post office is where common sense goes to die.
Mm-hmm.
So some of um, my contentions, let's just put it that way,
Okay.
um, is just the dishonesty from management.
Okay.
There's a saying that management would rather climb a tree to tell a lie than stay on the ground and tell the truth. I mean,
I could see it.
they management just doesn't care. And especially for a letter carrier, and I'm talking both city and rural, is a lot of postal supervisors and postal management come from the clerk craft
Mm-hmm.
or outside hires, and they've never carried a day of mail in their life. We were talking about the LLVs. We have a saying that they're oven in the winter. I mean, an oven in the summer and a freezer in the winter. My
No,
heat,
no, wait. The LLVs are the little buggies, the little
yeah,
cars that you guys drive
they're
around,
the
right?
long life vehicle, the Grumman LLV.
Okay, okay.
This is the same company that made the Tomcat.
I mean, look,
And
man, government loves their acronyms, so I just got to
yeah,
interject when I hear one of them. Like,
no,
wait, what are we talking about?
the problem with the long life vehicle or the mail truck, let's just say
Yeah.
the iconic mail truck, we just
Okay.
call it the truck,
The truck. Okay.
is they're 40 years old, over
Yeah.
40 years old.
Yeah.
I drive a mail truck that's my age. I'm 38.
Wow.
And my that one cold snap that we got at the beginning of January when that big polar vortex came
Oh
down.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, my heat went out. It's still not fixed.
Oh God.
I have a thermometer in my truck. It said 6 degrees one day.
So you're driving 22-mile route on a truck with a truck that's 6 degrees.
Hmm.
Good God.
And then in the summer, it's the reverse. Uh, Last year, my highest temperature I recorded was 124 degrees inside of the truck.
Can I ask a question? Where's your union?
That's also on my list of contentions.
Okay. All right. We won't bounce. Why don't we get through your list and then we can
So
like where's
just
your
the
Yeah.
so I've literally seen people bake cookies in their LLV, and they're done. I've seen a guy cook an egg and a steak at the same time, and
Oh
by
my
the time
gosh.
they got back to the office, it was a completely medium well steak.
Oh my gosh.
That's how hot it is, and there's no AC in these things. We
Yeah.
don't we don't even have airbags.
Well, and it's not like you can roll the windows down because you got mail flying all over the place.
I mean, we do roll the mail down, but half the time I have to keep my left window halfway up just to keep the
Yeah.
mail in.
That's what I'm saying. Otherwise, you got papers flying all over the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that we have a 22-foot square window. It's a giant magnifying glass.
Wow.
My Gatorade that I had today and yesterday in my truck was slurpy, slushy consistency by the time I got done.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
these things catch fire. They've been catching fire for years. Nobody can figure out why.
Maybe because they're 40 years old.
Well, this was even a problem at the beginning. They have no idea why these things catch fire.
Weird.
Yeah. For 40 years, they haven't figured out why these things were just, we call them a beer can on wheels.
Yeah. But like, here's the thing. Okay. So let's say you're in your truck.
Hmm.
And let's say all of a sudden you start smelling something a little funky. And meaning that your truck is on fire. Like I guess you just what? Pull over as quick as you can and bail out?
Yeah, save the mail if you can.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So, like, what about the mail that's in there? You just, hopefully can get it, but if not, then whole well.
It just depends on how fast that fire advances. And,
Wow.
I used to be a volunteer firefighter EMT, and, depending on where it starts, there's really no firewall in those things. So it can get into the cab pretty fucking quick.
So, have you had one catch on fire?
No, but we were loading up our truck one day and we smelled something and turned around and the guy was loading up in his truck, loading his truck, and we yelled at him to get out because it caught fire.
Oh shit.
And the truck was off. He had just started it, did his walk around, and
Yeah.
then he started loading his truck, turned it off, and then we just saw smoke pouring out from the engine.
Wow.
Yeah. I've literally
Okay, okay.
I literally have driven one truck where I went to go scratch my leg. I'm driving down the road at 50 miles an hour, pulled the key out of the ignition.
What by reaching down and just
Yeah,
bumping the key?
yeah, I actually when I reached down, I accidentally hooked it with my pinky finger.
Mm-hmm.
It just pulled the key out of the ignition.
Wow. Is that because
We
it was just so like done? So like I've been watching a lot of Top Gear,
Yeah.
and and you know how they do those episodes where I don't know if you've ever watched it actually. You may not know, but they do these episodes where the guys are assigned to go out and buy used vehicles and do challenges. Well,
Hmm.
one of them, Richard, he went out and bought this BMW, whatever the hell, and through a safety inspection and come to find out that I guess the part in the ignition with the little, grooves that make that ignition special to where only that key can start it, they were so worn down. You could have started that car with any just solid piece of metal. Like you could take a pipe cleaner and just boop, and like
Yeah,
start the vehicle, right? And so I'm just wondering, like, I wonder if if your truck just happened to have those grooves worn down to where it's like, it doesn't have to be
it
that key. It can be any
it's
damn piece
it's
of metal.
it's possible because I when I was a sub, I had one truck where I just reached down because you're supposed to take the key out whenever you park and get out of the truck. It's
Yeah.
just a safety thing to prevent rollaway runaways.
So it's funny you say that because I go to three post offices when I deliver my newspapers on Wednesdays, and the last one has a big banner up in the Bay Area, the dock that I drop at, that says like, let's stop the rollaways and runaways or something like that. It always just amuses me. I don't know why, for whatever reason, it just makes me laugh to think about the fact that one of these buggies might just like me, just take off, just keep going
It's
on their own.
I've had one roll on me. Luckily, I was right next to it, and I did everything right,
Yeah,
but the brake just gave out.
yeah. Wow.
And these things, we put these things in drive and reverse. Well, we're not really supposed to back up more than 50 feet, but we shift the gears so often that eventually the the shifter you can put it in park and it'll just drop
It'll
into
just
neutral.
drop. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
so I get out, I deliver the package, I get back in and I start the truck and I'm driving down the road and to my next house and I look down, the key's not even in it. I could just
It's just out.
So I guess we got off the topic of
I know.
dishonest
I know.
management, but equipment. I guess that's a big thing and
Yeah.
that goes into the deadly weather conditions that carriers face.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hey, now wait a minute. You're supposed to be out no matter what, rain or sleet or snow or blah blah blah
no,
or
and
whatever
we
the
get
hell.
that. Being a carrier is one of the most dangerous jobs you can do in the U.S. It's
Yeah.
not as dangerous as firefighting or police or an oil worker, but already this year, we've had four rural carriers die from different events.
Really?
We had one city carrier murdered a couple days ago on his lunch in New York. Just somebody walked up and killed him while he was sitting in while he was sitting in a deli.
Wow.
So we face so much shit.
Yeah. Well,
But
you're out and about. You're in everything. You're driving in bad weather.
hmm
So I mean, yeah.
there's no protections in those mail trucks.
Oh, you
Like
mean to tell
you
me
can
there's not crumple zones in the buggies and the
no
airbags and all
the
that kind of
what
shit?
airbag?
I know. I was gonna say.
But
So,
I've literally
God.
seen where like Top Gear,
Yeah.
where they have to buy these pieces of shit and rebuild them into Frankenstein. Well, I've seen one LLV that had the front end completely destroyed in the an accident, the back end of another one completely destroyed in an accident. They cut the good parts off and welded them together
Oh my God.
because we have no other trucks. My
Mm-hmm.
my office is down six trucks right now. We're sharing
Wow.
trucks. So
Wow.
people are, and that causes accidents because people are racing through the routes to get back to give these other people routes who then race through their routes and the risk of accidents go up.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
that makes.
that's coming from management, so now the pressure's on. They're yelling at us and everything like that. Like I got two emails, and I'll read a portion of each one. Just
Okay.
so you understand what kind of pressures are faced by carriers from management. So this one comes from Buffalo, New York, from a VP up there.
Okay.
It says, and I'm going to leave names out.
Yeah. No. We don't need to have any specifics.
We are leaving too many office hours on the table daily. We need to tighten our four walls and get this time back. Ah, damn it. With it being hot outside, so this was during the summer, no one wants to leave the cool office. Turn off the AC and drive them out.
Wow. I mean, I will say I in my research and just personal knowledge, I do know there are some facilities that there are rooms, the main work room, and everything where there's not like heater or air, and they're like working working hot and cold. Or at
Yeah,
the very least, maybe there are heat and air, but they're turning them in such a way that it feels like there's no heat and no air.
yeah, they've been instructed to turn it off to force carriers out onto the street. Meanwhile,
Wow.
and city carriers they're fighting it, but they're supposed to have an office time. Like rural carriers, we don't have any office times. We can spend as long as we consist
What would
make
you
out
be? What would they be doing in office time though?
we'll be case of mail,
Oh,
sorting our packages, getting our routes ready in route order. Um, so management tries to force the city carriers out within an hour. Well,
okay.
and I've tried that a couple times. And we call it taking it on the side. I just throw my DPS in the truck, which is delivery point sequence. The mail comes in all in order. I
Mm-hmm.
case up my raw mail. That's the stuff that didn't go through the machines or got mixed into somebody else's mail, and they gave it to me. Pull that down, and then I just take all that on onto the street with the packages and deliver it. I'm about 2 hours slower doing it that way.
Okay.
Compared if
Okay.
I just case up everything, pull down, I'm working from one bundle and I'm on the road.
Interesting.
And this next email comes from uh PA1, so the first division in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
And they talk about the Andy Griffin show about responsibility.
What?
So this guy starts off regarding safety. Why should we care more about an employee's safety than the employee does? If a carrier wants to deliver mail without a satchel and dog spray and they get their throat ripped out by a pit bull, why should we care?
Oh my God. Why
And
would they put that in writing?
because they can.
I
Nobody
mean,
cares. The
yeah.
management I have what you call a unicorn office, and my management actually does care. They used to be carriers, and they want to help us. But
Yeah.
most offices, it's just like that.
Well, see, and the post office I deal with the most, where my newspaper is based out of. Um, it's my impression, last I was told, that it shares a postmaster with a couple other offices. That like this guy like bounces between post offices because they don't have
Yeah.
postmasters for each one. So like he's hardly ever there. And like the only time I ever see those people actually energized and excited about doing something is in October when three of the ladies decorate the lobby for the breast cancer awareness thing so they can win some little localized contest amongst all the different post offices and all this. And they won this past year. So, of course, as the newspaper, they're like, oh, come and take our picture. So I go back there and I'm in the back room and they're trying to get all the carriers together for this group picture. And it was like, I mean, dude, it was like a collection of people that it they had no fucks were given that day except for the three people that decorated that lobby.
Well, I
you
can tell
know
you is because
and
they're like, we need to get out of this office to make this time, and we don't have
yeah,
time for this.
for this picture, yeah, it was the most ridiculous thing, but of course the postmaster showed up for that picture.
Of
you know
course,
of
because
course.
yeah. So that sounds like he works in a centralized hub, and that's
Mm,
one of the satellite offices.
okay, well, now my biggest gripe that I've got, and this only happened this week, they put up a letter on the door basically saying, yeah, we're going to stop having the lobby open 24 hours because there's too many homeless people coming and sleeping in the lobby. And we don't, or I'm sorry, they didn't call them homeless, they called them locals. There are too many locals. So, but we all knew. But see,
Yeah,
now I can't access my PO box 24 hours a day. I have to go based off the hours that are listed on this thing. And so and the thing is, I would go and check the PO box at various random times. Partially because sometimes I'm dropping papers, and I have exceptional dispatch, so I can drop 24 hours a day on the dock and just leave it, and they just get
mm,
it the next day. But then, so like maybe sometimes if I'm dropping at midnight, I'll just pop around, go inside, check my PO box real quick, and go. But the other half of it is I don't like dealing with the crowd. That post office, it's busy all the time. The parking sucks. And so, quite frankly, I don't like going during the day when they're open because, you know, I got to deal with parking and deal with the crowd and everything.
I get it.
But now I got to do it in order to get my mail.
Yeah, that sucks. That's a local issue.
It is a local
Like,
issue, but
like
it's still, but it's not. I did find an article talking about how different post offices are cutting back on the PO box access because of the problem of homeless people sleeping in the lobbies, which then that leads to a whole nother discussion about, and this is something I've always said, which is, this is the United States. There's no excuse for us to have homeless and hungry people, but that's a whole different thing. And
no,
then,
I agree with you.
then you
Instead
get
of sending
accused of,
all this money overseas, how about we take care of our own people
I'm just
first?
saying, yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't want to be accused of like redistribution of wealth or anything like that. But at the same time, it's like, for fuck's sake, there's no excuse for us to have sick, hungry, and homeless people. I'm sorry. It's just ridiculous. But
No,
anyway,
I agree.
so, all right, back to your list.
Okay, so we did just toxic working environments. I mean, I started with the post office at the end of 2019 into 2020. And, you know,
Oh God, so you came in right before COVID.
so 2020, they like to say, we had a sign in front of our post office. Most post offices did that said, "Heroes work here."
Uh-huh.
Like we were given paperwork when the country shut down that said if we got stopped by police, we flash our postal badge and
Oh
this
my God.
paperwork that said we are essential workers and they need to let us pass. I mean,
Oh my
you can
gosh.
look this up on Wikipedia. During an event like that, did you know that the National Guard would ride with the postal workers to every house in America to issue a vaccine if it was mandated?
Really?
Because the postal workers are that friendly face that everybody in the country knows.
I will say I do know my postman. He's a big nerd like me. He likes comic books, and so I've probably slowed him up on his route because he's delivered stuff to me, and next thing you know, 20 minutes later, we're still talking about the penguin. But that's neither here nor there. So
No, it happens. When the
yeah,
country shut down, everybody looked to the mail carrier, whether it
yeah.
was rural or whether it was city. It was the one constant. Your mail got there every day. I had
Mm-hmm.
COVID twice. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
we lost so many people in the plants from that died of COVID. Like half my office went down at one time with COVID,
Wow.
but the mail still got out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Interesting.
it's like that scene. I know you're not a big Seinfeld person. It's like that scene from Seinfeld when Newman was like, "The mail never stops." Like,
Newman.
I finally looked at my supervisor one day. I said, "I finally get it. I get what Newman was talking about."
How much do you identify with Newman?
Uh, some days 100%. You're just angry and uh, it's just like fuck this shit. No, so
Oh, I get it.
there's some like I have a big customer pickup that's honestly kind of abusing the system. And on Tuesday after the holiday, which
Yeah.
I love the fact that I got 2 days off, but it was not worth it. It took it took me and two of my coworkers three trucks to pick up this pickup.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I had almost 600 scans on my scanner, and over half of it came from that one pickup alone. And
Wow.
I didn't even scan it all. I had one of my coworkers scan about 100 packages.
What? Okay. So
And
they're just
they're a reseller, so they buy shit and then
okay.
they sell it again. And I'm like, I
Okay.
can't see how you're making money.
I know, I get it. I mean,
I guess we need to get Dave on to
I
talk
was
about the
saying
whole
Dave does
research.
a lot of that, but see, he does it with the nerd stuff, and I know the nerd stuff. You know,
I I can tell you this is not nerd stuff. This is like they're getting. One day I walked up and they had 150 packages from Walmart Plus.
what?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's nuts.
interesting.
Uh, Rural pay issues. We
Okay,
d- we do we do that by hand.
the
And the
wait,
and
the
and then
sorting.
no the keeping track of our time.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
And then management inputs it. Well, 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 2 years ago, it was after 2020. Um, I guess there was an update to the pay system that screwed it up, and we have I think at last count 140,000 rural carriers in the country.
Okay.
Well, maybe a little more. Half of them didn't get paid.
Oh, jeez. So now, not only are they going out and doing all the work, but then they're not getting their paycheck.
Yep.
Okay.
And the post office issued a post office money order, which banks, because they're so widely counterfeited, banks took 5 days to clear those money orders, and
Oh my,
it was only for 63% of their gross pay
really?
to account for taxes and everything.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So you had so many people were like, I saw so many things on Facebook. I just got an eviction notice because my rent's late.
Yeah.
We have city carriers that live in homeless shelters because they don't get paid enough.
Wow.
We have city carriers that their union halls have put in showers so they can get a shower before work.
So okay, so you brought up unions. So where are the unions for all of this?
A lot of times, especially from what I see from the city carrier side,
Yeah.
is they're in bed with management.
Uh,
And and I gotta say, with my union, they're kind of in bed with management too. They just signed a MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding
mm-hmm.
that says regular carriers like me can now continue to volunteer to take split routes. You know, if somebody calls out and you don't have enough subs,
Yeah.
um, to split that route, and a regular can take it, and they can work on Sundays for Amazon Sunday.
Amazon's a topic I want to get to, but okay.
Oh, fuck Amazon.
Oh,
Um,
I got questions, but yeah,
um,
because
but it doesn't.
I kind of feel like Amazon is a main contributor to the breaking of the post office.
Amazon would not be as big as it is without the United States Post Office. And whoever signed that fucking contract, and I don't know the
That's the
exact.
contract I want to get to.
I've never seen the contract. I've only heard hearsay, so I can't speak on that.
But they have
But
like this deal where they get it super ridiculously cheap, correct?
I've heard as low as 25 cents a package.
Fuck.
So there is no way Amazon would be as big as it is without the United States Postal Service.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Oh, but then they
but
went out and created their own fleet to compete.
well, that takes me back to something I wanted to talk on when we were talking about the history, kind of the history of the Postal Service.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, there's no way that they can Trump, let's just say Trump, because everybody's worried about Trump
yeah.
privatizing the post office. Never going to happen. He can't
Yeah. Okay.
because
Because I
the
know that's
post
what
o
DeJoy is pushing for.
yeah,
Ultimately.
there's some that saying that he's working for that. They don't know history and they don't know the Constitution. Because the post office is specifically spelled out in the Constitution, you would need a constitutional amendment to get rid of the post office. So you would need to get 2/3 of both houses, good luck, to
Yeah.
agree to that, and then on top of that, 2/3 of the states to agree to that. Good luck trying to privatize the post office.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On the flip side, though, what seems to be happening is kind of a marginalization of the post office. It's like we talked about earlier. We have the first class mail, decreasing in usage due to whatever it's due to, be it email and everything else. But then also, you have FedEx, UPS, Amazon, and all these things that have their own different parcel fleets. So it's like the post office, it'll be there, but is it going to be, how big of an entity is it going to be?
Well, one I know FedEx and UPS have said they want no business during doing the mail because it's not a moneymaker. It's
No,
not.
not at all. And I mean, my
And
God, it's going to slow them down exponentially, having to like worry about stopping at every house and doing that kind of
exactly,
stuff. Yeah,
the post office was designed for rural areas
yeah.
because it's the last mile delivery. We go to every house in America every day. Or we should. I know there's some city routes that have sat for like a couple weeks. It happens, unfortunately, especially
Yeah,
on the city side.
yeah.
Um, but I tell people you got to think of it like Amtrak. Amtrak is subsidized by the United States government. The Amtrak, just like the post office, has never turned a profit. Why isn't there a call to do away with Amtrak?
There's been some discussions about not doing away with it, but definitely, but they always want to throw money at. That was Joe Biden's thing, was always throwing money at Amtrak.
Yeah,
You know,
Amtrak. You know why they won't ever get rid of Amtrak, even though it never makes money? Is
why is
because
that?
it maintains the railways for the entire system.
There you go.
And the post office is the same way. It keeps everybody connected.
Okay.
So many people depend on the post office for their social security checks. Their
Yeah.
medicine has become a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and part of the Postal Reorganization Act of the 70s after the big wildcat strike was it has to pay a comparable wage to others of their ilk.
So does
So
that mean that the big contract that UPS got the other year is resulting in more money coming for you guys?
it should, but
It should.
the city carriers just rejected their tentative agreement because their union president only negotiated for a 1.3% raise.
Hmm.
And that's when I go back to incompetent unions
I
when
would say the union leadership is screwing you guys over too.
exactly. I mean, and they've been out without a contract for almost 700 days.
Wow.
They have not gotten a raise in almost 2 years.
Wow. That feels like something that they would be like pretty pissed off about.
The average city letter carrier is
Yeah.
extremely pissed, but
But the further up the ladder you
the
go.
union management that lives in Alexandria, Virginia, like they call it what did Renfro say? They call it an inconvenience.
Mm.
Hey,
Hmm.
it's funny how you can call something an inconvenience when you're getting paid over $300,000 a year.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Um,
My union president, Don Maston, I call that guy out. I don't care. He hasn't run a mail route in 15, 20 years, but
wow.
knows exactly what the everyday letter carrier is going through.
Well, see, and this goes back to my bigger problem here, which is that you have people that obviously don't know what they're, don't understand what's going on the ground running things. But then also you have this bureaucracy, this monolithic bureaucracy that just you guys they can't get anything done, and they can't make advance anything into the 21st century here. I mean, like, for example, with my periodical permit, I established it at the O'Fallon post office. Okay.
Hmm.
So when you look up my newspaper, its home base is the O'Fallon, Illinois post office. Well, let's say I get a call from the post office saying, "Hey, you dropped off your papers, but you just don't have enough money in your permit account to mail, this mailing." What'll end up happening is I then have to drop everything and go to the O'Fallon, specifically the O'Fallon, Illinois post office. I can't go to any other branch. I can't go to any other location. I have to go to that specific one because that's where I'm based out of. and I have to give them money, but I can only do it via cash or check. I can't use a debit card or credit card to put money into my permit account. And so, now I'm having to maintain checks. I'm having to go, but like it'd be one thing. I don't have checks on me all the time. So sometimes when I'm out and about and I get that call, then it's like, oh, now I got to go home, get a check and go. And it was one thing when I was living in the duplex because I was half an hour one way from that post office. Now I'm more like maybe 10 minutes from that post office. So I don't care quite as much and I'm keeping track of it. But nonetheless, it's like, let's update this. Let's have an online portal so that I can
Mm-hmm.
go online and actually put money in using, I don't know, even if you don't want to use a debit or credit card, maybe have a bank transfer, like an electronic transfer program to where
Well,
I could
even
like,
then, you got the ECH, the electronic checks.
exactly.
And that goes to like if honestly, if the post office wanted to make money, we offer so much shit for free. Like when you do Pulpit Fest, or if you go down to Florida,
Uh-huh.
you put your mail on hold,
Mm-hmm.
completely free. Why not just attach a $5 charge to that?
Right? Well,
Or
because at that point they'd actually have to fucking hold it. Because
well,
the last time I did that, they didn't, and I got back and my mailbox is just jam full. And then what happens is then I got to go and still tell them to turn my mail back on because I don't want to get stopped at some point. And it's anyway, that's a
no,
whole nother discussion.
and honestly, when that happens and this has happened to me, and I feel terrible because I've left packages outside. I've
Yeah,
delivered the
yeah,
mail. And, I'll be casing up the mail and I'll go back to my hot case. And the hot case is where all the raw mail is sorted into the different routes by the clerks. And, we have our daily pickup sheets and then our daily holds if somebody's put in a hold in for the route.
yeah.
And I'll get it and I look at it and I would say, okay, 123 Main Street, they're going on hold 210. Well, shit, it's the 20th. Why the fuck didn't I get this 10 days ago?
Right? Exactly.
And a lot of that falls on management.
And then what happens is the individual's pissed off at you because why did
Uh,
you deliver my mail? Because again,
exactly.
going back to what you were saying, you're the friendly face that everybody knows.
Oh yeah. And
Uh-huh.
I've gotten that. Why the fuck did you deliver my mail? I'm like, I never got the hold request.
Mm-hmm. Here's another gripe I have. So, you know, um, so obviously with my newspaper, people move and they don't update their address with me. So I'm still mailing newspapers to them at that address. Well, when the address is changed, I don't get that notice for like a month. So I've mailed out like 4 copies to somebody before I get the first notification of the change of address because those papers they first bounce to the original or to the post office for the delivery to that individual. But then that
Hmm.
post office or whatever says, "Oh, they don't live there anymore." They go to fucking Indiana and they're processed and that's where that little yellow sticker, correct?
Yeah, that's the computer forwarding system.
So it's sent to Indiana to stick that little fucking yellow sticker on, and then it's shipped back to me to tell me they're not at this address anymore or they've changed or whatever it is. But again, that takes 4 weeks for that to turn around to get to me to where now I have sent 4 editions before I find out that person is no longer there. But then the post office dings me however much money for every single piece I mail to that address that has to go to Indiana to come back to me. So if so let's say you have a subscription, you don't update your address. I not only get dinged for the first one because I don't even know, but then I get dinged 3 more times before. I mean, I end up I piss through easily $200 a year just on that bullshit.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And at least you get the notification. Some shippers don't even get it. Now, a good way if you wanted to spend a little bit extra money, you could put on the endorsement forwarding service requested, and that's when they try to forward it to the new address. But
But
that
will
costs
that
it.
work? But will that work with periodical permit?
Yeah,
You know? Okay.
Periodicals is one of those classes of mail. We have a couple different classes. We have first
Yeah.
class, second class, third class, and
Oh,
endorse,
and
and
don't
media mail and periodical.
and let me tell you, nobody at there's like two people at my post office that know how to deal with periodical. Despite the fact that that's where my permit is based out of, I walk up to the counter to put more money in, my permit account, and I ask the clerk at the counter, like, I need to put money in my periodical permit account. They look at me like I'm a dog being shown a card trick. I mean, they have no fucking idea on earth how to do that.
Yeah, because it's probably not something that
Oh, I'm sure they don't deal with it much, but they've dealt with me enough. I mean,
you would think so.
the
Yeah.
last time it happened, the lady, when I walked up to her, she looked at me and I said what I needed. And she goes, I was afraid that's what you were going to say. Because she has told me three different times before this time. This was the fourth time now. Three different times before this time that she didn't know how to do it. And it's like, at what point do you just take a moment to learn this? Because all four times that this has happened, I know that you were shown how to do it because I was standing there as Al, the senior guy, comes out and teaches you how to do it. You just can't fucking pay attention and retain this information.
Pretty much, yeah.
Anyway.
And that's why I said, the face of the post office is always going to be the letter carrier, whether city or rural, because not everybody deals with clerks. Nobody fucking deals with management unless you
Yeah.
call and complain about something.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and that's why a lot of when I first started with the post office, we had a carrier, not at my office, but in Richmond, Virginia, got caught with a storage locker, a 10 by 10 storage locker full of like 5 years worth of mail. He was a city
Whoa.
he was a city carrier, and
Yeah.
when asked why, he was just like, I just couldn't keep up with the mail. I always intended to deliver it. I just could never.
So he was just every
It,
day just going and dumping a little bit more into that unit.
whatever he couldn't deliver that day, because if you bring back mail, especially on the city side, like rural, uh, everybody says the rural craft is the baby brother of of the letter carriers, and I can see
Yeah.
that. We're
Yeah.
smaller, they have more union members, whatever. But we can pretty much do whatever we want as long as we make the truck, because
Yeah.
we're paid under the evaluator system, meaning if I'm back at noon and I start at 7, I'm back at noon, I get paid up to 4:30
Okay.
when my evaluation ends. Now, if I'm back at like 6 o'clock, right when the truck's getting there, I don't get paid for that last hour and a half.
Okay. Okay.
The city side is paid hourly, but
Okay.
they're tracked every minute, every second of the day.
So they're
Every
wanting desperately to get that route done as quick as possible.
and not only that, one of the things that city management loves to do is they would tell you, sorry, the carrier will come up and say, "Hey, I know I'm not going to get this done in 8. I need assistance, or I need to leave some mail here." The the city management will say, "Get it done in 8. Deliver everything and get it done in 8."
Okay.
How are you going to do that? And if you bring the
Yeah.
mail back, now you're getting written up. You're getting a PDI or pre-disciplinary interview for disobeying orders and bringing mail, the willful delay of mail.
Hmm.
So it's literally like the city carriers are literally caught in a catch-22.
I was saying they're screwed any which way.
If they stay out and deliver their entire route, oh, now they're getting written up for unauthorized overtime. But if they bring it back, oh, now they're willful delay of mail. Then they try to hide it, and oh, I'll come back and get it tomorrow. But that
Yeah.
keeps piling up, and honestly, that's why you see city carriers at a back of a dumpster behind a building dumping mail, like third class
Wow.
mail, non-endorsed
Wow.
mail.
So okay. So do you have any other items on your list before we? Because I
Only one.
okay. Okay.
RX.
What is it?
RX, the Rural Route, it's RRCS, the
Okay.
Rural Route Compensation System. It's this new fucking system that tracks everything we do to pay us for what we do. The saying
Hmm.
is a fair day's pay for a fair day's work.
Okay.
Management has bastardized this thing to no end because we're supposed to be completely transparent. We're supposed to see the numbers and everything. When there's 24 scans that we're supposed to do a day, depending on how your, trips to the door, authorized dismounts, clock in, all that other stuff. Well,
Okay.
the six main ones you're supposed to do: clock in, start load, which is start loading your truck and load your truck, out to lunch, in from lunch, return to delivery unit, and clock out.
Okay.
Management is in charge of training. They only taught us back in 2022, 2023, the first six scans.
Those six that you just said.
Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't tell us that the rest of those scans are what causes your route to go up or down because we're evaluated every 6 months on our route.
Okay.
When I first took over my route, when I became regular, I was a 43K. That's not important. It's just 43 is what you're just evaluated at. It's like
So it's a
50.
score.
Yeah, it's like on a regular day, if everything you work an 8-hour day, it's like 50 some hours, and your route's supposed to bring in $43,000 or something, revenue, something like that.
Okay.
Well, they only taught us those six scans.
Okay.
The first mini mail survey, 66% of the rural routes across the country went down. So
Okay.
people lost money. My route went down by an hour. I lost $4,000
Okay.
within an instant. There's some carriers out in the Midwest where you are that, both husband and wife, had bigger routes, 48 Ks or something like that. They lost $50,000
Wow.
in one fell swoop.
And it's all because
It's all
it,
because they weren't doing the mapping and they didn't teach us the correct way to do the scans.
but I'm just trying to it's okay, but like what are these additional scans you're supposed to be doing?
So like if I do you know what a CBU is?
No.
Like it's a centralized box unit. It's those on pedestals. It could be in a wall, but it has like 12 to 20 slots in it, and it's like people's addresses.
Okay.
Well, let's say it takes me 3 trips to get all the mail and packages for that CBU.
Okay.
So you're supposed to
Like in an
go
apartment building or something like that.
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
okay, okay. I
So
follow, or an office building. I follow what you're talking about.
yeah, well, you could also have standalone in residential. Like
Yeah,
my route is a 730 houses delivery points, but
yeah.
most of that is CBUs.
Okay, okay,
I have like 54 CBUs on my route.
okay,
So if it takes me 3 trips, you're supposed to go into the RX scans and put in authorized dismount 3. The first one
okay,
is free, and then they're supposed to pay you for the additional footage and time that it takes you to do the rest of it. Well,
okay.
so you got authorized dismounts, you got trips to the door. If you have a postage due, like a short change, like you as a mailer didn't send enough, but you're supposed to deliver it and you're supposed to collect money from the customer saying,
I
hey,
see.
the mailer said, hey, you're supposed to cover the difference. Uh,
Okay,
International customs due. They didn't pay enough in customs, but the customer, has to pay it. All these different scans. If I sell like the rural side is a post office on wheels, so you could come up to your mail carrier and say, "Hey, could I buy 10 books of stamps from you?"
yeah,
He's supposed to have, X
yeah.
amount of stamp.
Supposed to.
Yeah, supposed to.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it's just like, all right, I'll take your money and I'll deliver your stamps tomorrow.
Okay.
But, that's a scam. If your mail carrier comes up to you and you're selling a bunch of stuff and you're only sending part of it out and sending part UPS, part FedEx, we have what's called rural reach, and we're like, hey, let me get your information, let me put in this rural reach, and we can explain the benefits of the post office to you.
Okay.
But yeah, the RX system has screwed over mail carriers. There's two carriers that went from there's 3 classifications of routes for the rural side: K, J, and H, and
Okay.
auxiliary. An aux route doesn't have an assigned person. And H route, you work 6 days a week. You only get Sunday off.
Okay.
A J route is you alternate Saturdays, so you'll work 6 days one week and five another. And then you have my route, which is K, which is big enough that it has another day off during the week.
Okay.
You had so many people that were making money on the K routes that dropped to a J or an H route, and they lost $20,000 to $30,000.
Now I follow what you're saying. So because they weren't doing these additional scans for these extra services, it made it look like that route
Right.
was not as valuable, not as profitable, and so it dropped the
Yeah.
ability for them to get hours and to work.
And it's worse for us table two carriers like me compared to table one. And what that means is, and this is we all do the same job, right?
Okay.
And back in 2012, it was this in a national arbitration, it was decided saying, hey, it was right after the big slowdown in the economy in 2008.
Yeah.
So they split us up into two tables. Anybody that was hired after this date gets paid this amount, and everybody that was hired before this date gets paid another
That
amount.
happens a lot in government, I know. So,
Yeah, so
okay.
let's say you were hired 3 months before this, let's say May in 2012.
Okay.
For my size route, you would be making $78,010 a year.
Okay.
Now you take my route, I make a year $61,000 a year.
Okay.
So it hit the table two carriers
A
even
lot.
harder than the table one carriers.
Huh.
And those two tables don't equal out until you're 15 years into the post office. And not a lot of people make it that far. I mean, hell, back in 2020, with how bad my management was,
Yeah.
and I can go on a huge tangent about how much management waste. Like, did you know,
Oh boy.
back in 1990, there was one manager for every 24 carriers
Okay.
or craft employees. It's now to the point where it's one manager for every 6 employees.
Oh, so it's gotten very top heavy.
Oh, there's too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And
Yeah,
in
so
fact,
it's
the postal eagle that I get, that's the big, postal management newsletter that they send out,
hmm
was touting the fact that since 2021 they've fired almost 20,000 supervisors.
Whereas you need boots on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We went through so many carriers in my office, RCAs in my office, that I stopped learning their names because
Wow.
between the time I was hired and the time I became regular, and I became regular fast. For It's not uncommon, especially out in the Midwest, in your
hmm
neck of the woods, that when I became regular, I posted on Facebook, I'm like, hey, I'm going regular today. And somebody from Illinois said, hey, congratulations. I've been an RCA for 24 years.
Oh my God.
And I made it in 2.5.
Wow.
But we went through 75 subs
Okay.
for a 60 route
Which
office.
is it's just insane.
Currently, I think we have 12 subs for 60 routes.
Uh,
And then,
and see, and this right here, this is the bureaucracy I'm talking about. This is the utter and complete bureaucracy that I think is slowing. So okay, we've talked a lot about what is wrong with the post office. Do you have, as somebody who's on the inside and is doing the job and everything else, do you have any thoughts about things that could be done to fix some of these problems? I don't want to just complain. I mean, like, do we have solutions?
as a boot on the ground, 90% of management needs to go away
Okay, so if
because
we
not
now, and
only
that would free up a lot of money as well.
not only that, because if you get, especially the bad managers, the managers that don't take the time to read the contracts, to know the RCAM, which is the Rural Contract Management, or the JCAM, which is the Joint City Management manuals. To actually learn the contracts, there's a slush fund in the post office, so I'm told, I'm not 100% sure, that's only there to pay grievance settlements. There's one I know
Uh,
uh there's one office I think in Mississippi
okay.
that if a certain grievance happens, I think it's a uh what did the city call it? It's a grievance where they use city carriers that aren't on the overtime list,
Okay.
but to run routes. If that happens, that every single employee in that office is given $1,500 just straight up. Is how many times
Wow.
I know Corey Walton has talked about. Um, he's been part of arbitrations that have awarded $3 million to carriers in
Wow.
one arbitration. There's I know there over in Illinois there was a big grievance settlement that resulted in like $15 million.
Really?
So there's so much waste that just happens in the
Yeah.
post office due to management salaries because management, hey, when they negotiated their contract, they got a 19% raise.
I bet they did.
But on top of that, it's just the grievance settlements. I'm sure if somebody could pull up all the data on how much the post office is paid in arbitration grievance settlements,
Yeah.
you'd probably be able to wipe out half of the post office's debt.
Wow. Okay.
So the
So
biggest thing
getting
in
management under control would be a huge thing right there.
I mean, just up in St. Paul, you had another postal shooting caused by management. A couple years ago, you had the Memphis shooting in Tennessee caused by postal management. There is systemic abuse towards the craft employees from bad managers, and they just get promoted. They don't get
Hmm.
fired, they get promoted. I've heard of one manager up in Pennsylvania that left his kids in his car when he was called into the post office and they both died. He's
Oh
now
my God.
he's now a VP. He wasn't arrested. He's now a VP of one of the Pennsylvania districts.
Oh my God.
That's the level of toxicity that is rampant in postal management. I mean, obviously, um, there's ways to make money. Like you could order boxes. Like if you go into the post office and, have to ship something, they have those boxes for sale.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, you could just order them from the post office app and it's delivered free of charge.
Well,
And you get 25 of them.
oh my God. Do
And
you really?
yeah,
Those like
20,
white
yeah, the priority boxes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that somebody's ordered 25 thinking they'll get 25 singles and they
Yeah.
get 25 packs.
Well, is this going back to what you were talking about earlier with the Walmart, the
No, thank
reseller?
God. No.
Okay. Okay.
But,
Um,
then you drop it off at the house and they look at you like, "What the fuck is this? I ordered 25." I said, "Yeah, you ordered 25 5 packs."
yeah.
25 packs. And they're like, "I don't need this." So now you got to load
So
them
now you
back
got to
into the
load them back
truck
up.
and
Yeah.
then take them back to the post office.
And then but they're free, so it's not like the post office is like losing sale revenue at that point.
But you're losing carrier time.
Oh, well, yeah,
And now,
exactly,
and
exactly.
now, especially with the way the RX system, now I'm inputting, it took me 15 trips to the door to deliver these 25, and now it took me 13 trips to the door to put them back in my truck. So now they're
So now
paying more money that way. But
so now you're looking inefficient. Yeah.
if you now if you only charge like $2 a box online, or if you charge like $5 for a hold or $10 for a forward or something,
Yeah.
there is ways to make the post office money.
Again, allow me to put money into my permit online.
That
Charge me $1.95 convenience fee for it or something like that.
hmm
Something like easy like that. You
I
know?
mean, and this would have to come from Congress. Let the post office ship liquor.
Oh.
The only
Well, now
reason the
let's
post
be
office,
real. Let's be real. people ship liquor. They just call it different things like
Oh yeah,
barbecue sauce,
I can tell you a couple different ways. Just add like dollar store candy, a bunch of it to the box, and it would help mask the sound of the liquid sloshing.
Ah, okay.
But
But we're
the
not
only
doing
the allegedly,
Yeah, I
I've
was saying,
never done it.
we're not going to advocate for the violation of
It's
the different rules where they
but
say like is this a this
the
or this,
yeah,
but yeah.
the only reason that that law is even on the books is because it's a prohibition era law.
hmm
So why wasn't that repealed the same time that the prohibition was repealed?
It probably supports the distributors somehow, and so like, Congress being in with the liquor distributors.
But why do they allow it through UPS or FedEx then?
Oh, that's a valid point. I
So
don't know. No, so you're right.
there,
Right there is a way for the post office to make some money.
yeah, it allow the post office to do banking again.
Huh.
Because there was, back in the 40s, 50s, before big banks became a thing, everybody, especially in rural America, you would go to the post office and you would have postal savings and loans.
Interesting.
And thank God they repealed the pre-funding mandate. That's what really fucked over the postal service in the early 2000s or in the early 2000s to use the post office as a slush fund. They said, hey, you guys got to pre-fund your health care for 75 years in the future for carriers and employees that aren't even fucking born yet. You got to pay for them right
Oh
now.
my gosh. Yeah, that's a lot of money
And
right up front that you got to pay.
oh, and that's why you would
Yeah.
see like every year the post office was dropping like we're operating at like a $15 billion loss is because
Yeah.
they're trying to pay for that, and Congress would just go around and I don't know, maybe that's what they found in Doge. Uh, the Congress will come around and like, okay, just like they did in Social Security in the 90s with Clinton, they're like, okay,
Rate it.
we're gonna, we're gonna, oh, sex changes for Guatemalans or whatever the
Yeah,
fuck.
we're gonna rate it. We're gonna rate it. That's true. And
But
and that
there are
that's every level of government, man. They find a fund that has some money sitting in it, they're gonna find a way to skim it.
Esther Chip.
So I mean, yeah, it's just fucking crazy. Um, Interesting.
But there are ways around it. Everybody just, I mean, honestly, you want to save the post office? Start sending mail again. Buy some stamps.
Yeah.
Send some mail.
Hey, I've got labels on the inside of the house right now to do renewal notices, and so that's 198 first class letters that are going to be sent out in the next 48 hours. So,
Yeah,
you
like I
know,
said, Detroit had a good idea on trying to raise postal prices because they were so out of whack. But the speed in which he did it is why UPS didn't renew their contract with the post office. That's why they got rid of SurePost because
yeah,
post office walked in at their negotiations earlier this year. They're like, "Hey, we're raising your prices by $4," and UPS said, "No, we're good. We'll do it
nah,
ourselves."
we're out. Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. It's rough ground for the post office, and it's just I don't know how it gets better anytime soon. But yeah, getting rid of DeJoy, I think, is going to help a lot. Maybe,
Depends on
maybe.
depends on if we get like our previous postmaster that when she was put in, she told management if you don't touch the mail, you should be worried about your job.
That's a good postmaster right
But
there.
she started out as a city carrier. Like
So she gets it. She got it.
yeah,
See, and that's the thing with DeJoy. I learned that in my research about him is that he's the first postmaster general to come in with no prior mail experience. That he came in from private business and that sort of thing, and that he had no prior mail experience whatsoever coming into this.
yeah, and in some ways that's good because it offers a fresh perspective. And I
Yeah,
think he has done a little bit of good just trying to update the systems. The way he went about it with the SDNCs would never work. I mean, there was a story last year out of South Carolina that in one of their SNDCs, or it was Atlanta, that it's so big and so massive that it wouldn't allow cell phone signals in. And the phones weren't hooked up yet because they're moving people into these SNDCs and they're not even done
Not
being
even ready.
built.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody had a heart attack and died because they couldn't get to a phone. Somebody had to run a half
God.
mile outside of the building to get a cell signal.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Well,
there's stories about one SNDC. There's one bathroom that's open. It's half a mile away. So you need to know you need to use the bathroom 20 minutes before you even leave your case.
well, shit. That's not good. Because I mean, like, I mean, come on. they,
Hey,
they,
we're both bigger guys. When you gotta go, you gotta
you
go.
gotta go. And the thing is, like, as you get older, that window of time gets a lot shorter. It's like all of a sudden
You
you're like,
know,
oh shit, I gotta piss.
shit. I know carriers that keep a bag and a bucket in the
I
back of their
knew
truck.
I knew you were gonna get there. I knew it. I knew it.
I
Yeah.
I'll be lying if if I never said I haven't used like shut both doors, so you can't see into the back of the truck, and I haven't used a Gatorade bottle before.
Oh, that's an
Now,
unfortunate thing.
I always clean out my truck. It's very disconcerting when you get into the truck the next day and somebody else used it the day before, and you
Yeah.
find excess bottles with certain liquids in it.
And you don't know what it. Oh God. All
I've
right.
made I've made that sub clean out my truck now.
Clean it out right this instant. Oh my gosh.
Now, I know you still have some stuff you want to talk about.
Postal wise,
Yeah,
or
you had Amazon, DeJoy. Well, we kind of covered
well, I would
DeJoy.
say we kind of covered the joy. And to be honest, Amazon, my whole thing was going to be like, do you feel that the contract giving the lower pricing crippled the post office? And we kind of covered that already
Yeah.
too.
Well, not only
So,
that, if you actually look at how Amazon delivers and how we deliver, they give us all the heavy shit.
that's true.
Like and I'm not kidding you, Nick. I've delivered toilets. I've delivered attic staircases. I've
Oh my
delivered
God.
exercise equipment. I've delivered a kitchen sink.
Okay. People
Meanwhile,
are buying that.
yeah,
People are buying kitchen sinks off Amazon. I didn't realize that.
and meanwhile, I get to the door, and don't get me started on the mattresses and dog foods and some of
Uh
this
huh.
other shit. You're carrying a 50-pound bag of dog food up to the door in a box that's way too big, and it's shifting all over the place.
Uh huh. Chewy.
And Amazon's already fucking been there, and there's a little 2-ounce package on the doorstep.
Oh, I know.
And then
That's now okay. So what about when Amazon puts something in the mailbox? Because I don't. Because correct me if I'm wrong. You're not supposed to put things in mailboxes unless you're
no,
a postal employee. Technically not.
technically, you as the customer own the post. We own the mailbox.
Yeah.
So if you want to get real technical about it, there's a couple different ways that employees are instructed to deal with it. Either A, don't worry about it. If you can
Which is
if
likely what's going to happen.
if you can fit your stuff into it, just push it in. And B, take it out and leave it on the ground, which
Okay.
I don't like doing because
Yeah.
it pisses me off, but somebody paid for that.
Well, and that's the thing. It's going to piss off the customer more than anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Or C, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to bring it back, and then we ship it back to the Amazon warehouse with a delivery fee.
Which is definitely going to piss off the customer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I don't worry. Now, what I would do is UPS and FedEx are big fucking people that do that. I have no
Yeah.
problem taking that stuff out because their packages are usually bigger
Yeah.
and take up the entire. Unless you have one of those big ass farm, we call them farm boxes. They're
Oh,
the
the really
real
big one.
big
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
They take up so much space, and it's just like, nope, you're going back to the post office.
Boy, I almost put one of those up at my house. So when I moved in here, not oh my gosh, it was not even it was maybe 2 weeks after I moved in here. Somebody smoked my mailbox, so I had to replace the mailbox. And I almost got myself one of those giant ones for no other reason than because of various packages that I get shipped here. Like, you know, like, oh, hey, a box of cigars, you know, that won't fit in my average size mailbox, but it will fit in one of these gigantic fuck off
Yeah,
mailboxes. But I
and
didn't
that's
know
what
if there were, but I didn't know if there were rules about that. So I
no,
figured,
there's
I'll just
not.
buy the little one.
There's not. As long as it says approved by the Postmaster General, even then that I've delivered to microwaves before.
Hmm.
That's literally just propped up. I don't know how. I don't know how they jury rigged this, but it was a microwave on top of a mop handle, like a mop stick.
My gosh,
I'm like,
I
I don't
wouldn't
know how
think a
the hell
mop.
you did that.
I would say I wouldn't think a mop handle would hold the weight, but you know, what do I know? Interesting. Well,
But
um, okay. So to put a bow on this conversation, the post office is pretty fucked up. You've put out some thoughts as to how to fix some things. I mean, do we do? I guess we have to wait and see who gets appointed after DeJoy to know, like, if
exactly,
there's any prospect of anything getting fixed.
as long as it's somebody that's done, I would say most of the jobs in the post office,
Yeah.
I think we have a shot. But if
Okay.
it's somebody from outside the post office that's never carried mail a day in their life, or been in the plant, or helped customers at the window, we're screwed.
Okay. Well, that's optimistic. So, given the fact that this is a cigar podcast and I am down to the practically nub of my United Maduro Churchill here, I enjoyed my cigar. It was it was a relatively, I'd say, you know, strong medium, maybe like maybe a 3.5 to, I don't even want to say 4. I want to say 3.5 on the old strength-o-meter.
Oh, fuck that shit. Hey, look, Dave, I know you listen, Mr. Garofalo. I love you. I love what you've done for the industry, but everybody's palate's different, dude. Allow Mr. Jonathan to put his 0.5, because
We want the
like
0.5.
I argue with, like, oh, they put and champagne is a stronger cigar, and I
It
love that.
is. It is.
I love that. I have it most mornings with my coffee. To me personally, it's a 5.5 to 6 at best.
Okay.
I
But they
can't
have it
see
as a
it.
7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean. I get where he's coming from, but the panel's too small.
Yeah.
With 3 to 4 people, I feel is too small to actually get a good representation.
Well, and I will say I don't feel as though the champagne is necessarily a 7, but on the flip side, my dad, he can't smoke the champagne. It's too much. He's like, it's too much for me. He won't
And
do
that's
it.
why I say everybody's palate's different.
Precisely.
Like
So,
I smoked the Oro that made Dave throw up,
oh yeah.
and I did that on an empty stomach, and
It was what it
I don't know what he's complaining about. But now that I shit on Dave a little bit, I got to shit on Mr. Jonathan.
Well, I mean, he likes
Mr.
that. So,
Mr. J, I
just
love
got
you,
to aim.
dude.
You just got to aim for his chest. But anyway.
Right?
Anyway.
There's nothing wrong with having a good glass of milk with dinner. That's how I grew up. I can't tell you how many spaghetti dinners I had with a nice big tall glass of milk.
You know, I like chocolate milk a lot. I don't necessarily drink just straight white milk frequently, but chocolate milk, I drink the shit out of chocolate milk.
Oh, my brothers and I, especially when we're growing up, even
Yeah.
now, my wife, I'm the main one that drinks the milk, and we can go through 3 to 4 gallons of milk a week.
Wow. Okay. Well,
And
you're putting the milk down.
Growing up with my 2 brothers and I, shit, some weeks we'll go through 12 gallons.
Oh my gosh. Well, all right. So you guys are big heavy milk drinkers. So there we go.
So I had to shit on them both.
There you go. There you go. Well, why don't we now go ahead and do this? It's time for the Villiger Cigars Entertainment Report, brought to you by Villiger. Villiger Cigars, one of the leading cigar and cigarillo manufacturers in the world, founded in 1888 and still family owned and operated. Head over to VilligerCigars.com and check the store locator to find a shop near you that carries them. We guarantee that Villiger Cigars will be a wonderful addition
to your humidor and cigar rotation.
Wanted to get this segment in while I have you because it's always nice to have somebody else to talk to
Yeah.
see what they've been watching. So what have you been entertained by?
Well, going back to the postal thing, there's a great documentary on YouTube called The Great Postal Heist.
Okay.
And it's about a dude whose dad got screwed over by the post office, and they did a deep dive, and it's some very concerning things that come out from that documentary, and it's like an hour and a half.
Okay.
It's interesting. You should. I encourage everybody to take a look at that.
I will check it out. That's good to know.
You got something?
Yeah. So I, on a completely unrelated to the post office note, I did go and see the new Captain America movie, and I you know, it seems like it's getting shit on a lot. Like a lot of reviews of the new Captain America movie are not that great. But I gotta say, I was entertained. It was 2 hours, so it never felt too long. I didn't check my watch at any point, and like, it wasn't dragging. I was entertained by it. Look, were certain things a little predictable? There were aspects of it that but see, I'm also a mega nerd, so like I was picking up on things that maybe the average comic book person might not. But I thought it was a good kind of, it was an entertaining enough movie. Is it the best thing the MCU has put out? No, it's not. It's definitely not the best Marvel movie ever. Is it as rough as some of the more recent entries have been? Absolutely not. I think this was a much better one than quite a few of the most recent ones. I mean, the Marvels and the Thor 4 and the Doctor Strange 2 and Eternals, and I could list off a bunch of it, but like there's been a lot of misfires. This one,
Yeah.
I thought has been. I thought this one was entertaining.
Well, that's good. I was worried that they would do kind of what Disney did and like just rehashed with episode 4 with the latest. How it was basically
Star
the
Wars.
the same thing. And
no, this was it. I could tell they were trying to go for kind of a political intrigue, spy kind of thing, kind of like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which in my opinion is the best Marvel movie they've put out.
that was really good.
But they didn't quite get that, but it was super close. I'll tell you what this movie is, and very few people are talking about it. This is straight up a sequel to the Incredible Hulk that came out with Edward Norton as the Hulk, the one that came out right after the first Iron Man movie, or maybe it was right after Iron Man 2. I can't remember, but it was
the one that was, I was just like, oh, that one sucked.
It was the very beginning of everything.
Yeah.
So there was Iron Man, and then there was this Hulk movie, and it was that Hulk movie. This is a sequel, obviously, to that, and then the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus TV show. Those two things I think play in pretty heavily. Eternals does play into it, but like realistically, if you haven't seen it, it's not the end of the world. But it's really a Hulk sequel more than it is even a Captain America. So like it's kind of nice seeing some threads that I kind of assumed were like long forgotten, kind of picked back up and played with again, and done so in a way that I thought was actually pretty entertaining. So to be honest, look, I give Captain America a solid B. I don't want to say, it wasn't bad enough to say C's get degrees, but it was definitely, it was more entertaining than that. I would give it a solid B. It was good.
That's good.
I liked it.
I might go check it out because I like you, I was looking at those reviews and I'm just like, well, shit, this is gonna be like everything else they put out.
Yeah, I don't know why it's getting as much shit as it is, but it's not nearly as bad as the reviews make it out to be.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that piqued my interest, and I think it was back during the Super Bowl, and you might have talked about it on your lost episode with Brinker.
Possibly.
We are recording, by the way. Right?
We are recording. Yes, I know. I fucking didn't hit the buttons.
But Jurassic Park Rebirth.
Yeah, here's the deal. It feels like it feels like Jurassic Park is really good at starting a trilogy because Jurassic Park 1 is still,
Epic.
in my opinion, it's the best Jurassic Park movie,
Hands down. I agree with
hands
you.
down. Lost World, and Jurassic Park 3. Then you get to what is the first one with Chris Pine or
Jurassic World.
whatever the hell, what the Chris.
Yeah,
Um,
Jurassic World.
yeah, Jurassic World. That one, I thought the first one was pretty good.
Hmm.
The sequels sucked.
Yeah,
They
I
they they,
agree.
they really weren't good.
The
This
only
one feels like it might be pretty good.
the only thing that caught me was that D-Rex.
Wait a minute.
They're calling that monster that you only saw snippets of. You
In the
know,
newest one that's coming
yeah,
out?
in the newest one, you saw just like the leg in one scene, and then
Oh,
in that red room when somebody's pounding on the window, you see this big hulking thing kind of coming down. They said that's what's called a D-Rex.
okay.
And it has like 6 limbs. It's like one of the first mutations that they did. I'm just like,
Oh
can
my
we? I'm
gosh.
like, can we get off the mutation thing a little bit, please?
Here's an idea. Why don't we show the dinosaurs with feathers? Like all the science is proving that they actually have, instead of going with this whole lizard kind of thing that the Jurassic Park movies have, and let's be real, back in the 90s when they made the first one, it was what it was. But since then, science is coming along and showing that dinosaurs have been more bird-like and, big, lots of feathers and that kind of shit. Why don't we see raptors running around looking like, mean, sleek looking turkeys, or
Well,
something
I
like
tell
that?
you what. I tell you why, because the that one raptor, the Utah raptor in
Yeah.
the third, and the Velociraptor in general, they're too big.
Well, yeah, no, they need to be
Yeah.
much smaller.
Oh yeah, they said if it was to be an accurate depiction,
Yeah.
it would come on an adult male, like I'm 6 foot, it would
Yeah.
come up below my knee, like
Wow.
for a
So
Velociraptor.
it's not intimidating enough to be.
No, it's
Yeah.
and I get where the originals came from, and even Fallen Kingdom and all that is they're just not scary enough. So
Yeah.
I get the and I guess they kind of try to retcon that in by saying, hey, they just weren't scary enough.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think we need to be making up dinosaurs. I think we're perfectly fine with the dinosaurs that we had. But, and here's the other thing. There are so many dinosaurs that were never touched on. I mean, like like the first movie touched on the basic ones, but like, instead of making up new, predators, look at some of the other already existing
Yeah.
prehistoric predators that were out there that we haven't touched on.
Or
You know,
really throw people for the loop and try to make them sound like actual dinosaurs would have sound because they're starting to get a idea of what they sounded like.
well, see, there you go.
Like
I
I
mean,
saw a TikTok video the other day of what a T-Rex actually sounded like, and I'm like, that sounds scarier than what they put in the movie.
right? Exactly.
But
Anyway.
a good book that I've read lately is called Beyond the Beachhead. I'm a big history nerd, like you're
Okay.
a big. I love anything to do with military history,
Okay.
and this is the story of the 29th Infantry Division during World War II. If you've seen Saving Private Ryan, that's the unit that Tom Hanks' character was attached to. They had
Okay.
the blue and gray patch on their shoulder, which symbolizes, because it's a National Guard unit, it symbolizes that the states that formed this unit uh, fought against each other in the Civil War. You have things from Maryland, Virginia,
Oh,
Pennsylvania, Florida, the Carolinas. In fact, the Stonewall Brigade, Stonewall Jackson's brigade, is still active in the 116th Regiment in the 29th Infantry Division.
interesting.
So there's a nice little, history connection. And in fact, the book went on to say that the 29th had the second most casualties in the entire Eastern European theater of operations at over 20,000 casualties.
Wow.
So it was a nice read.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well, I'm glad. I have a whole mountain of books, and that was one of my resolutions this year was to start getting through some of them, and I haven't taken the time to do so. I've been working hard lately. uh I've been very focused on the newspaper stuff because I had my tax meeting with my bookkeeper,
That's
and
never good.
nope, it's not. One of those things that they don't tell you when you're starting your own small business is that the tax man cometh, and boy, the tax man is coming hard this year for me, and so I've been going out and pounding the pavement trying to sell some advertising in my newspaper, which is not an easy thing to do. Um, but it was it. I saw a lot of drop after COVID, and it's not been easy. But so I've been focused heavily on that, which
Yeah.
has taken me away from a lot of more entertaining pursuits. But
No,
that's
I
okay.
get that.
You know, it's
I mean,
it's
COVID fucked everybody up. That's,
yeah.
going back to the post office. That's the most I've ever worked. You would get back from your out and you would see uh 15 pallets of Amazon outside of the office and another 22 inside.
Because
And
everybody
then
was at home ordering shit.
that
Yeah.
that that Christmas was the most I've ever worked in 1 week because I was our weeks go from Saturday to Friday. In 1 week, I worked 114 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we
Well,
were getting there at 4, and we weren't leaving till about 11.
I mean, I guess the paychecks on the backside of that have to be nice, but
It is, but a lot of people don't know that when you go from RCA or PTF, which is our two sub positions, and PTF is the first career position you can have in the post office,
mm-hmm.
you lose money
Oh,
because of all the benefits you get, the TSP, the insurance. Yeah, insurance for a family of three. If I was to sign up for the insurance, is almost $700
oh my
every two
gosh.
weeks. But yeah, you have people that are on the lower steps of the tables that, they lose, you go from $2,300 paychecks down to 11.
Wow. Yeah, that's a shock. That's a shock to the system, and
Yeah.
not something that anybody could sustain. I mean, at that point, you
Hell, I'm
know,
looking at getting a part-time job just so, like I said, in my area of living, a family of three needs 190. I think my wife and I pull 110.
wow.
But it doesn't stop me from. You got to get your cigar game up. By the way, I tracked my cigars last year, and I think I was closing in on 2,000 for the year.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, you're also sitting inside.
Well, only because my wife lets me.
Well, see, therein lies. I mean, I could. That's the thing. I live alone. I could smoke in my house, but I don't want to. I don't want to. Because like it gets in my stuff. It gets in the way, and it's like I need
My
to.
my wife smokes medicinal marijuana, so.
Okay.
But at the same time, we don't live in the best area, and I used to smoke outside, but
Yeah.
that changed when like the fifth time somebody shot somebody in the neighborhood. So she was like, "Okay, you're coming inside."
Yeah. I don't think that's safe.
Well,
Yeah.
that, and I can also smoke on my route.
Ah, see,
I'm not
there's.
sup- I'm not supposed to, but I can't tell you how many customers I've had come up to me say either A, giving me cigars because they smoke,
Yeah.
or B, just like, hey, we like the fact that you smoke. It reminds me of my grandfather.
That's nice. Well, at least they're not being shitty about it. Um, I'm
No,
sure all my what?
I was gonna say I like the customers that try to give me cigars and then end up giving me like a black and mild.
Hey, that's when you just graciously accept and
Oh,
move on with life.
I light it up in front of them
There you go.
because
There you go.
I'm just looking at it and I'm like, well, that saves the $3 cigar I got in my bag.
There you go. See, and I'm sure all my newspaper subscribers are wondering, like, why does my newspaper always smell like cigar? Because on my way to and from the printer, man, I'm smoking. But yeah, my numbers this year have been low. But see, it's been so fucking cold this year
Oh,
that like
dude,
sitting out here in the
I can
garage
see
has
you
been
shaking.
yeah, and like I don't know, there's breath, you
Oh yeah,
know. So
I was smoking in my truck today and I wasn't even puffing. I could see my breath and I'm just like,
yeah, and
yeah, it's
mind you,
15 degrees in this fucking thing right now.
I have a propane heater sitting right on the table next to me. It is maybe at most about a foot and a half away from me, and it's on full. And then down at my feet, I have the electric heater plugged in on high. And even with the two within about a foot of me, I'm still sitting here, breathing, and I didn't even bother turning on the window fan to suck the smoke out this time because that does create some, and it also sucks the heat out. That's the other thing.
Exactly.
It sucks the smoke, but it also sucks the heat out. So I'm like, I can't, because I think today when I woke up, it was 1 degree outside, but it felt like negative 15. So
honestly, I
I'm
don't know
good.
how both sets of carriers deal with both. Like Noah, his mail carrier is up when it's like negative 22 with wind chill, and the reverse is true for the Texas and Arizona carriers in the middle of the summer when it's 130 outside, and
Right.
those trucks with that window can add 30 degrees in temperature.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, you got guys, the carriers that are out there doing that shit in extreme temperatures, but they got to figure it out, I guess. So, well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for this chat. This has been enlightening and educational, and I hope that everybody has enjoyed this little peek inside the post office, because I know I have. So,
I'll let you know if I get called into the office sometime in the next 6 months with the postal inspector saying,
yeah, hopefully not.
I hope not. I didn't, say exactly where I worked or anything. So.
Exactly. So, I would hope not. So, but anyway, I do want to, final thought on your cigar. You had the dumpster fire.
Oh, it was delicious. I always enjoy that one. And, supporting Warfighter, a veteran-owned company, is always, important to me. I just fired up an Andalusian bowl.
I was wondering what you fired up, because I was like, that kind of has a very distinct shape to it, and I thought it was a bowl, but I wasn't sure.
What was Dakota was once asking where to find like good packs and everything to try cigars.
Yeah.
And I will say, and I'm gonna kill myself for saying this. Two Guys offers the mystery grab bag. It's 10 cigars for $30.
Yeah.
It's I usually add one to every order because you never know what you're gonna get, and some of them are discontinued products that they can't move anymore. Like I had Balmoro Duetto that was made by EP Carrillo. They don't even sell Balmoro in the States anymore. They're great, but so it's either those or things that have like this cigar had a crack in the wrapper. So
okay. So they put it in there.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten Padrones. I gotten some of those Mirafell cigars that are like $80. So that's a good way to Dakota. That's a good way to sample some different cigars that you might not get in your local area.
It's a good tip right there. Actually, I have to admit I've never bought one of those packs, but I mean, 10 cigars for $30. That's kind of hard to pass up.
Exactly, and I think the latest pack I got came with a Padron and a Perdomo 30th in it.
Nice. There you go.
All right. The downside is, sometimes they run out just because, they're not going to put. They run out of discontinued stuff, and nobody's breaking anything.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure Mr. Jonathan's, over there just roughly fingering some stuff. So, there's bound to be some wrapper cracks at some point.
Dave and fucking Jonathan are like, fuck that guy. They're hard enough to keep stuff in stock anyway.
Well, very cool. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking time out tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Not a problem, Nick. You have a wonderful evening.
You too. So I really want to thank Chris for taking time out of his day to do that interview. And I really want to thank him too, because, we did keep him kind of anonymous, but, he came on video and he gave his name. And so, it's one of those things. It takes a lot to come out and speak about your employer in such a way. And so I really hope there's no negative ramifications for him for this, because I asked him multiple times what he wanted to do, and we did what he wanted to do. So, Chris, buddy, that's on you. But no, seriously, he's right on so many different levels, and I every time I rag about the post office, it's one of those things where I get the hiccups all of a sudden. It's one of those things where I hope he and all the other postal employees that listen to this realize that obviously I am talking about the bureaucracy and not the individual. And so it's nice to know that some of the individuals are just as frustrated as those customers that are out there that are super frustrated too. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of really frustrated customers dealing with the post office. But anyway, and I deal with it more than most. I mean, that's the thing with my business and everything. I deal with the post office a lot more than the average bear, and so yeah, it's a whole situation. So anyway, why don't we now do this? It's time to fly high with Blackbird Cigars. Blackbird Cigars offers you remarkable quality using the most delicate and finest tobacco to always ensure that you're receiving unsurpassed cigars. Blackbird Cigars strives to give you undoubted repeating flavor for every cigar you smoke and impressive quality so that you can always expect greatness. Check out their website for a full list of stores carrying Blackbird Cigars and give them a test flight. Blackbird Cigars can't clip our wings. So today I do not have the names of the individuals that I am highlighting here. But who I am highlighting here would be the flight crew, the in-cabin flight crew for Delta Flight 4819. And for those of you who might be saying, what is Delta Flight 4819? Delta Flight 4819 was the plane that went down in Toronto, the one that flipped upside down and all the people on board had to be evacuated off before it caught fire. And the thing is, you know, the stewardesses or the flight attendants, whatever we'll call them flight attendants because I think that's the proper nomenclature now. They were calm. And they were collected, and they got those people off the plane. They were telling them, leave your stuff. Don't take anything. Just go. And they got everybody safe and out the plane. And, you know, all the news reports are talking about how, you know, training kicked in, and they did their job well. And there was even some cell phone video that one of the passengers took that showed a young lady directing people out the door and telling them, you know, just go, you know, and all that. And so these flight attendants, they did their job, and they kept their cool, and they kept their head in a situation that I can't say all of us would have been that calm and collected during, you know. And so no, I think I feel like the Delta Flight 4819 flight crew needs to be commended. So be like the Delta Flight 4819 flight crew and Blackbird Cigars, and don't let anybody clip your wings. Although that plane had its wings clipped. But that was apparently part of the deal. So Chris, actually, after we were done recording, we talked about this briefly, and he pointed out that the design of that plane is such a way that I guess if like wind shear or something like that is if there's factors that go into it, and if these factors take place, the wings are designed to come off, and that way it prevents the body of the aircraft from snapping in half and everything. So apparently the wings coming off was kind of exactly, you know, what was supposed to happen. So I don't know, whatever. Anyway, be like that flight crew. Keep your head in bad situations. Anyway, it is also Friday, which means it is time for Pinky's Fun Fact.
Hey, it's your girl Pinky. Ready for a fun fact? In 2013, a man was arrested for spreading the ashes of his fiancée inside one of her favorite places. Lens crafters, obviously. This has been Pinky, and I'll be back next time with more fun facts.
I can think of so many other places I would want my ashes scattered than lens crafters. I mean, so many other places than lens crafters. I don't know. Whatever. That's a whole different situation. Well, it's kind of an interesting, it's kind of a really, you know what? I'm not going to use that as a segue. I'm going to do the socials first. So, socials. I'm available on Instagram at the Cigar Pulpit. I'm available on Facebook where we have the Pulpit Parishioners group. You can get in on the fun over there and interact with everybody and take part. I am available on Twitter/X. You can watch the show on Rumble, which is like YouTube. You just go over there, sign up, make an account, and subscribe to the Cigar Pulpit, and you don't miss an episode. I am on YouTube as well. And then if you are a Spotify user, I do have Spotify video as well as the audio, so you can kind of get it either which way you want it. And then I do need your calls for Ask the Pulpit, so you can call the hotline at area code 863-874-0000. That's area code 863-874-0000. I do have one bit of sad news that I want to touch on real quick. So the Parishioner family lost a member this week. Scott Hall is you may know him from the Smokin' Butts and Tappin' Ash Barbecue and Cigar Crew. I've had him on the podcast before, and obviously, they had their own podcast, the Smokin' Butts and Tappin' Ash, podcast. And Scott, he was an awesome guy, and unfortunately, he lost his battle with cancer this week. It was, I believe it was Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. Feel like it was Tuesday. But it was his birthday, so he made it. Passed away on his birthday, actually, and but he lost his battle with cancer on his birthday, and Scott was he super down to earth. He was a super down to earth good guy. He made a fucking mean brisket. I mean, I defy anybody to make burnt ends that taste as good as that guy's. He was always down for a party. He was always down to sit and have some cigars and throw some smoke in the air and have a drink and chill out. He was a good family man. He's leaving behind his wife and he has a son who is married, and he has a grandson who is, I don't even feel like he's one yet. I think he's not quite 1 year old, but I know in the last year Scott spent a lot of time with his grandson, packing it in, and I'm happy for him that he was able to do that. But Scott, he was living on some borrowed time. This was not his first bout of cancer. This was actually his third go-round. And the prior two, he was able to beat it. But it's one of those things. When the second round came around, I think everybody even the doctors told him, you're going to get a couple more years by doing this. But he had his son's wedding coming up. He had the grandson's birth coming up, and he went through fucking hell. He went through hell. Chemotherapy's a bitch, and he went through it, and he did what he had to do to make sure he saw some things in his life. And he got some bad news late last year, and the treatment was going to be worse than the outcome, and so it was one of those things where he finally decided that he wanted to go out peacefully rather than go out painfully. And so we're gonna miss Scott a lot, and it's gonna suck. He's a good dude, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his family, his friends, Dave and Travis over at the Smokin' Butts and Tappin' Ash group. All the rest of them. I mean, Scott, for a good old boy from Southern Illinois, he touched a lot of lives. So, really wanna remember Scott. And this weekend when you're smoking a cigar, throw a little smoke in the air for Scott Hall, because he deserves it. He's a good dude, and like I said, we're gonna miss him. So. Anyway, guys, on that note, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen. I hope you learned a little bit of something today. And otherwise, this has been another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm Nick. Stay safe, stay smoky, and fuck cancer. I'll say this: if there's one person that probably is more devastated by this news than the average bear about Scott, it's going to be Rick Rodriguez, because my God, I can't think of a guy who smoked more fucking West Tampa tobacco blacks than Scott did. So, Rick, I'm sorry, but you're going to see your sales numbers and your profit take a major hit in Q2 of 2025, because Scott's not around to smoke your product anymore, buddy, and he was definitely putting down the West Tampa tobacco cigars. So, yep, sorry, man. Later.